Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. This is a bucket list day for me. I've been trying to get this guest for a while, and I'm just so excited. If you know anything about sports, if you like sports, you know Hannah Storm. She has just shattered the glass ceiling for women in sports journalism. She's a producer. She's a director. She's done every sport you could ever imagine. She's interviewed celebrities and presidents, and I'm just so excited to dive in with her. She is a mom of 3 daughters. She is a breast cancer survivor. She is now very passionate about, and we're going to talk about this, hereditary cancer screenings, which is just really, really important. So Hannah, thank you so much for joining me.
Christina, it's great to be on with you. I love the whole premise of your podcast. And just when I think about life after 50 and all the incredible things that have happened to me after that age, it's just really fun that you're bringing all that stuff to light. And then, of course, there's health things that we have to consider after that age as well. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and I was thinking about this interview, and so I've been a sports fan my entire life. My grandfather played in the Davis Cup. My father was an Olympic athlete. I went to my first. Yeah. I mean, I just grew up around sports. But how did you, because we're pretty close in age, I loved sports, but I never thought, I'm going to be the first woman sports journalist. And you started out right as a DJ. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's because nobody wanted to hire me to do sports. So I started out as a heavy metal DJ. I just wanted to get on the air, but I had grown up around sports. So like you, I have a family history in sports. My father was an executive, so he was on the business side. So we moved around all over the whole country from city to city and different teams and franchises. And I just knew that sports was a lot of fun because I'd been going to sporting events since I was young. And then I was a huge ham. I knew I wanted to go into broadcasting. I was always in musicals and plays. I was our mascot. I mean, I was just very outgoing. I love performing for people. And then I was like, well, sports is fun. Why don't I go into sports broadcasting? Of course, there was nobody doing it at the time that was a woman, and I wasn't really projecting all of the sort of obstacles that I would find along the way. But I didn't want to cover city council meetings. I didn't want to be a features reporter. I really did like sports, and I felt like super comfortable in that. So I think that's how I came to do something that was completely non-traditional, that there weren't even people on TV that were doing it at the time.
No, but who listened to you when you're like, hey, here I am, I'm your gal. They're like, no, there are no women here. How did you break through that?
Yeah, there were literally, I sent out back in the day, hundreds of resumes. And when I had worked in sports all during college at Notre Dame, behind the scenes, on the air, I did internships every summer. I had a really, really good resume. But then when it came to applying for jobs, it was my sports director doesn't want to work with a woman. My audience won't accept a woman. I'll hire a woman over my dead body. All these great things that I don't think you would hear today. It was like not PC at all. And that kind of made me like really stubborn. That really kind of ticked me off. And so I just kept applying. And then my first job was, as I said, as a heavy metal DJ in Corpus Christi, because I just wanted to get on the air. And my dad was like, there's more radio stations than TV stations in the country. So I made up a tape. And I DJ'd some during college as well. And I got that gig. And then there was another one in Houston that became available. And this is all from answering want ads, by the way, like in Broadcasting Magazine and radio and records, for a morning and afternoon drive sports person who would spin records on the weekend. And so I drove with my resume, I drove to Houston and I waited in the lobby of the radio station with my resume and my little tape. And I waited for the director, the program director, to walk out to go to lunch. And I just popped up and I said, "Hi, I'm Hannah Storm. I'm working at Corpus Christi and I wanted to hand you my resume and my tape in person." And he was like, "Wow, I think he just was like kind of blown away by that initiative." And then he also saw that I had gone to Notre Dame, and he told me later that he thought that was just a really good, it was that I had a really good academic background. And I got that job. And so that's how I started. So I started doing, sports on the radio in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
But breaking into TV is a whole different thing. I mean,
Then
then
and then I did, there was like a local cable station, and they had sports calendar every week that they did. And as a radio person, I covered all the teams. So I covered the Rockets and the Gamblers at the time, the Oilers. Neither of those football teams still exist. But anyway, Rockets are still around. And so are the Astros. And so I met, various broadcasters. And there was a guy named Bill Worrell who was doing play-by-play for the Rockets. And he just saw that I was around and I was like super hardworking and very sincere about what I was doing. And he was like, "Do you think that you would just want to read our sports calendar on TV once a week?" I was like, "Sure." Like, that's kind of always been my MO is whatever it is, what do you need? I can do that. And yeah, I have a total open mind. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Is that what you want? I'll do it. And I'm still that way to this day. I'm just like that. And so I started reading their sports calendar. Lo and behold, then the Astros needed a pregame person and the Rockets needed a pregame and halftime person. So I went to the other local station and I started doing that. And so then I had some really good TV experience. And there was a station in Charlotte, North Carolina. And again, I'm answering one ads and sending out tapes the whole time, just rejection letter after rejection letter. But there was a station in Charlotte, North Carolina that was starting up to become an NBC station. And they wanted to hire a woman as a gimmick. So they wanted people to watch their station for different reasons. And they thought, wow, wouldn't this be like a crazy gimmick? We'll have a sports reporter during the week and then she'll anchor on the weekends. We'll hire a woman. That would be like nuts, right? And so, they called and they were like, "Have you ever done NASCAR?" And I was like, "Oh, I can learn NASCAR." And on the side, I'm like, the hell is NASCAR again? but I did. I ended up hosting NASCAR specials and all of that, because sports isn't like brain surgery. You know what I'm saying? Like it's if you're smart, like you can apply. And I always tell people it's not like there's some secret language out there that only men can speak. And sports is for everybody. I firmly believe that. I grew up that way and I kind of manifested that in my career. So that's how I got my first full-time job. And actually, a year later, I got a job at CNN. Again, sending out, editing my tapes, sending them out, working hard, blah, blah, blah. And then I was the first female sports anchor at CNN.
And I've interviewed so many people, and I interviewed Hoda Kotb years ago, and same thing. So she literally went stationed, like drove up, took her mom's car and drove here. Right. Here I am. And they're like, "No, you're not ready. You're not ready." So she just kept smaller and smaller markets until.
Yeah, that's right. And worked your way up. And even at CNN, they made me take a quiz, and the funny thing is my husband, Dan Hicks, who I met at CNN, who got hired a week after me, he didn't take a quiz. They never asked him to take a quiz. So I got grilled and they had a whole like series of questions that I had to answer just to show whether or not I knew.
How could a woman possibly know anything about sports?
Isn't that crazy? Like, what's the difference between the American and National League and baseball? And I was like, oh, good Lord. Anyway, so isn't that funny?
I do have a question though, because you cover everything. I mean, golf, skating, football, baseball, everything. Basketball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. Like a lot of people just stay in one lane.
They do.
And was that hard? Or you're just such a sports enthusiast. You just know all things sports.
You know what? I have learned each sport along the way. So I mentioned NASCAR, and that was incredibly, you have to humble yourself to ask a lot of questions. You have to find people who kind of want to play ball with you. I found like in the sport of NASCAR drivers who their all the money they make is from sponsors. So they were like, absolutely, we need to teach people about our sport. So that's how I learned about all the tires, all the technical things, the strategy and stuff was from the drivers themselves. And then the same in other sports. I'm huge on homework. I'm over prepared for everything. And I find that gives me confidence. I mean, even to the point where I play by play for the NFL for Amazon for 4 years. And that's one of the hardest jobs in sports that you can do. And it requires an insane amount of knowledge. And so, yeah, I mean, just keep learning and keep trying. And, tomorrow, if somebody was like, you need to host lacrosse, I would be like, all right, I can do this. Again, I think with any amount of hard work and preparation and not being afraid to ask questions, you can do pretty much anything.
Do you have a favorite sport?
I love basketball and the NBA and the WNBA because that's how I grew up around the NBA, the ABA. So I go really way, way, way back with basketball. And I really love football. I think it's the Notre Dame part of my life, college football and the NFL. So, I mean, those two are really fun. But I mean, I've hosted Wimbledon and the US Open and Olympics. And I mean, all of it and each of it is really special in its own way. Baseball, I think, has the best postseason of any sport, just the World Series and just all the strategy and how quickly the games are played. So I think, a lot of the different sports have different things to offer.
As a trailblazing woman in sports, what did you think of this year with Caitlin Clark and what she's doing for women's basketball?
I thought, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, I would put the two of them in the same category, but it is really amazing how the rookie class of the WNBA and those two women in particular had such a huge impact on women's sports. And that thing that's really special about it it's not basketball. There is now a volleyball league. It was just announced there is a professional women's lacrosse league. I mean, this is literally touching every aspect of women's sports because the metrics are there that people are watching and that you can make money. And that's what it needs is corporate America to come in and say, oh, people are watching women's sports. Oh, I'm going to invest in a league or an athlete. I'm going to invest at the collegiate level, name, image, and likeness. And I think what's wild is that it came from one sport, but it's had this huge umbrella effect on all the other sports and the other leagues, which I think is amazing.
And I just interviewed Kim Davis from the NHL, and just hearing about what they're doing. So they've got their first woman coach, and she said within 2 years. She's the head coach, and that she's I'm a huge hockey fan. Like we've been with hockey forever, but it's kind of a quiet sport. There's like she calls it the sport, and she's like everyone's following us. And people are listening to what we're doing, bringing women in, but their numbers are astounding. How many female fans they have. So it's like, let's bring more women in.
Yeah, and hockey is one of those sports that I think is very easily understandable. I think hockey is really easy to follow. Hockey is very entertaining. When you watch football, it can be a long time commitment. They can stop down. There are, so many rules. I mean, I don't even know, that even the play-by-play guys have to go to the rules expert. I mean, so some people are like, I want something a little faster, a little quicker. So I'm going to gravitate towards basketball. Like, oh, a foul, no foul. Okay, I can kind of absorb that. The same thing with hockey. Like it's very, very quick. And I think hockey, in terms of an in-person sport, it's even better than it translates on television. So, hockey is, I mean, I go to Rangers games. I love it. It's, I'm sure you're not a Rangers fan, Christina, but anyway.
I'm a Capitals fan, Hannah.
A Capitals fan, oh no.
I know, sorry.
Okay, well, we'll just move on. But I do think hockey is super attractive to just, people that maybe don't want something overly complicated and overly long. Sometimes it's hard to just, keep your patience with sports. When you're a mom, you're busy and you're, running around. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about being a mom because you have 3 daughters.
I do.
And you obviously work a lot.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, it's not like you just go to the office. There's a lot of preparation.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, what a role model for your daughters. First of all, congratulations on that. And their friends. And,
yeah.
But was that difficult?
Yeah, I do think that anyone who tells you that balancing motherhood and work is easy, I mean, obviously they're not telling the truth. Like we all know that. And I think that, I would just really encourage people who are sitting on Instagram and seeing these ideal lives just to understand that everyone's only showing you their best side, that there's so much just really hard work and nitty gritty that goes along with being a parent and working and trying to keep your family healthy. And this time of year is a phenomenal time of year to be together. Um, and having three girls, I mean, to the point of what we're getting to, and one of the big reasons that we're talking is just like talking about things like your health and your family history, and those are conversations that, along with hey, what'd you think of the new Wicked movie? Or how are the Texans playing? No, how are the Commanders playing? In your case, how are the Commanders playing? Like I just feel like when you're hanging out with your family, especially during the next few weeks, just really taking advantage of that time together and talking about things that are important, and I got to say, I've learned a lot this past year about cancer since getting diagnosed with breast cancer less than a year ago. And that is something I never would have talked with my family about or talked with my daughters about. And we have cancer history on both sides. So like my husband's mom had cancer and my dad had cancer. And it never would have occurred to me to take that, how I could take that history and understand what my risks are and how easy that would be. And that's what, that's what we're here to talk about, like your hereditary cancer risk. And I just think it's really important this time of year, especially, to address those things.
Yeah, and screenings. I just a few weeks ago interviewed Dr. Susanna Greer, who's the chief scientific officer of the V Foundation, and she's like, when you go to happy hour, you need to be talking about colonoscopies and mammograms. And I just went on a girls' trip to Aruba, and that's what I made everybody talk about. When was your last mammogram? When, but your kids, it's really, really important.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. My daughter is 24, so we're probably
Oh yeah, we have daughters the same age because I have three daughters in their 20s. Yeah.
And they, like, she saw things on TikTok and she's like, Mom, I'm really worried about this. No doctor will talk to me. Like, can you help me?
Right.
So that's why these conversations are so important.
Right.
And she ended up being fine, but I was able to get her into my doctor, who said, you're really smart because we're seeing problems in 20-year-olds.
At younger age. Yes.
So talk about these, because I'm not familiar with until your team sent me things over about this hereditary.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I know, Christina, it's unbelievable. Before I got cancer, I wasn't either. So it's all about genetic testing, right? And it's knowing your history. So how young people love to Google things, and I do too. And maybe you don't, here's where you start. Just myriad.com. So you go to Myriad, MYRIAD.com, and the / know your history. Okay, they spell it all out for you. They have like literally a 2-minute quiz for you to take. They will give you, not only give you information and really simplify it for you. They will tell you the steps that you can make. They'll give you stuff to print out if you want to take it to your doctor, or if you just want to handle it online. But we're talking about something so quick, so simple, and it literally will let you know your risk for any number of cancers.
Is it a blood test or test?
Yes, it is. Okay. Yeah, very, very, very simple. So again, I took this after I got breast cancer because I wanted to know, what are my risks for other kinds of cancers? How high is my risk for breast cancer? Because all of those things inform health decisions that you make. So obviously there's preventative measures and things that you can do, but you need the information. So it's really, really empowering. Some people think, well, wow, I might be like scared to know this information. But, if you can just kind of reframe that and say, this is awesome that I know this information, that I know that either I don't have a risk, which I personally don't for other kinds of cancer, or that I may have a risk for this. So, wow, what can I do in the meantime? And also, wow, I better be on top of my screening. Because when you're screened early for breast cancer, your survival rate could be like 99%, right? You get something called, which I did, DCIS, and surgery. And I'm on a drug called tamoxifen for 3 years. And there is such an infinitesimal risk of it coming back. But I needed to know my genetic, you know, profile. I needed to know, like, am I at like a huge risk for this cancer down the road, or what about ovarian cancer or something else? So if you've had breast cancer, like anywhere in your family, and this is another real misconception. Everybody thinks it's their mom. It's your mom and your dad. Okay. So if anybody on your dad's side of the family had cancer, especially breast cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer. Okay. And I'm talking parents, grandparents, cousins. That's all information that you need to know. And it all goes into, along with the information that they're getting from the blood testing, towards you being able to assess your risk, your cancer risk. It's just, I mean, if you think about it, it doesn't take any time. It's free. Like, why wouldn't you do it?
Right. And it's so interesting you just brought that up, because I have a lot of breast cancer on both sides. And when I went to the breast cancer specialist, just again, being very proactive, my father passed away of esophageal cancer. And I said, oh, that doesn't really matter. And she's like, oh, well, wait, what? That is tied to breast cancer if it's on your paternal side. So this is why it's so important. And I do this all the time on my podcast. Be proactive about your health. Look into things, ask doctors. If you're not getting the right answer, find another doctor. But it's really important that we take it into our own hands, which now doing this test, you're able to do that. That's amazing.
It's just so easy. It's called My Risk Hereditary Cancer Test. I mean, that just spells it out right there. And I mean, listen, I have 3 daughters, so I wanted the information for myself, but I want the information for them too. So you have to think about the other people in your family, not just yourself, but think about your kids, right? Like, they need this information. So not only do you need it to be empowered to make decisions, and to also, you know what, if your provider doesn't suggest it, or what, I mean, suggest it yourself. Like you were saying, Christina, like, you have to be proactive. Like, just don't go to your doctor and like, oh, you don't need this, or oh, this isn't important, or whatever. Some doctors don't even know, right? So it really is up to you. And there's also a lot of people that are afraid to go to doctors. They're afraid to get tested because of bad news. But the really bad news, is when you don't get tested. Because when you don't get tested, then you don't take care of it. And then it can get really bad, late stage cancer, really, really hard to treat. So, like, just, hop on it. And I always say, like, it's a holiday. It's like, okay, you're watching the game, like, you're hanging out. It's like halftime, commercials, whatever. You also need to know, like, I was like texting all my cousins, like, I know you had cancer at some point. What was it? But like, it's really good to understand those things and to have those conversations when you're together. It's a lot easier to have them sometimes in person. You know what I mean? So, and you're just gathering information, like family history, like you would gather any other kind of family history, like, where was so and so born? Oh, what did they do? Like, everybody's always reminiscing anytime. And one of the things, that my dad died of cancer during COVID, and it was like kind of this, like, it was this kind of like undiagnosed, like unnamed kind of cancer. But I wish that I had, at the time, had I known how important, like, the hereditary information is on the dad's side, I would have tried to get more specifics about, like, exactly, like, what category is your cancer in, and blah blah blah. And now it's like too late. Like, I don't know. But had we had that conversation, had I known how important it was to have that kind of conversation where I would have known more specifics, I would have done it. But, I don't have a lot of cancer in my family. And we have no breast cancer. So I just want people to understand that too. Like, you don't have to have people in your family who've had breast cancer and then you need to take this test. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, yes.
And we have so many resources. One of the things I learned from one of my guests was the breast cancer screening that you do online. And,
yes.
I had a high number. So my doctor she's like, and then I went and ended up being okay. I did get an MRI because my number was so high that my insurance paid for it. But she did that with her sister. She had a high number. Her sister did not. She had breast cancer. So she opted for the double mastectomy, and she should never, it was so early. But again, being proactive and being comfortable talking to your kids and your family, like, okay, we're going to talk about this. This is just normal.
It's hard. I think at least with my kids, they're like, "Ooh, that's scary. I don't want to talk about it." But I'm like, well, we're going to talk about it. And this test is, and people hear like genetics and they're like, "Oh my God, that's so overwhelming." And I'm like, no, this is like super, super simple. All the answers are going to come back. And if you're at high risk, or, you need to know, do you have the BRCA gene? Like what kind of genetic mutations do you have? Do you have them? Do you not? You may, and that informs every decision that you're going to make along the way. And again, if your provider doesn't do this naturally, you can speak up and do it. If you're uncomfortable doing that with your provider, you can do it right online at Myriad.com. You can go right online and do this, which some people prefer. There's people who are even scared to go to the doctor, but they literally walk you through everything, including how to talk about it. You know what I mean? So they give you like, okay, here's an easy way to bring this up. This is really straightforward. This is the kind of information that you need to know. And so like, I just think it's an incredible tool. It really is. And it's absolutely necessary. And I wouldn't necessarily do what I did, which is wait till after you get cancer to do it. After you get cancer, you definitely need to do it. But I think doing it in advance, again, if your family has any one of those 4 cancers that I mentioned on either side, even extended family, you just you need to take care of yourself because everyone's depending on you.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
It is power.
And we just recently, and my followers know this, I just started with integrative medicine doctor. To treat the whole body. And it's a lot of natural supplements. So if you're predisposed, it might just be taking certain vitamins and supplements that can fix, that like the whole holistic thing is your body fixing your body. So if you're predisposed, you find the right doctor who can, you don't have to be pumped full of medications. And again, this is all new to me, but it's just crazy what we've seen. My husband got off all his medications and he's like all in the green. He just got his test results back today. Like his cholesterol's down 30 points. It's like, how did that happen? So knowing ahead of time that you're predisposed to things.
It's really critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's right. And then you can determine like what kind of steps that you need to take or want to take, or at least what your choices are.
Right.
And what choices make the most sense.
Exactly.
And you just don't want to, I'm like you. I'll go out with my friends. We'll go out to dinner. I'll be having wine. And I'm like, when was your last mammogram?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm all over my friends all the time. And a lot of them are really lax, and I'm like, hey, I had no history, no symptoms. Okay. I just had a yearly mammogram. Now, my business partner, she helps me schedule my yearly mammogram. Okay. So that makes it easier. So I'll say this, you need an advocate in your life sometimes too. So as a mom, you're really busy, or young professional, or whatever you're doing. We're all super busy, especially this time of year. Sometimes you need to be an advocate for someone else, and sometimes you need an advocate to help you. So that's why I talk to a lot of men too. Like, if you need to, you make the appointment, okay? Or or ask the woman in your life that you love, has she made her appointment? Has she made her screening appointment? Is she getting her mammograms? Is she doing her screening? Did she do her genetic screening? And then if you need to drive her, if you need to watch the children, if you need to take her out afterwards, whatever it is, these are things we don't want to do and that we push to the back burner. But if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. The rest of it's like a house of, like, everything else crumbles if you don't have your health. And the thing about genetic testing is you don't have to guess. Like, all the information is right there. It's inside of you, right? You just do this simple step, and then you're going to understand what you do or you don't have to deal with. And that's what's so critical.
I'm curious, and you don't have to answer, but did your test show that you were predisposed for breast cancer?
No. Wow. No, it did not.
So it shows again why it's so important that you need to do everything, all of your screenings to stay, because your screening, correct, is right. what saved you.
Yeah. That's doing my mammogram, having dense breasts, following that up with an ultrasound, and then them saying, we're not so sure, we'd like to do a biopsy, doing the biopsy. And then it came back, ductal carcinoma in situ, then going in, then having my genetic testing. So it sounds like a lot. These aren't like, but these are just the steps you have to take, sort of the logical steps you have to take. And then I had a surgery, recovered very, very quickly, and cancer-free. So which is amazing. Yeah. So, but had I not done any of that, this cancer would be growing in my body, and it wouldn't have been so easy to take care of. And, then you're getting into some really, really tough things.
So thank you for using your voice.
For sure.
You have that and to spread this for everybody. I knew this was going to go so fast. I had a million more questions, but
that's okay. It was great talking to you. We'll do it again sometime.
So fun. So tell me, what's the greatest thing you've accomplished since you've turned 50?
Oh, the greatest thing I've accomplished since I've turned 50 is probably raising my daughters and seeing them grow into their 20s and getting them out in the real world. That's definitely it.
Yeah. Check. I've got two checked boxes. So I've got a son and a daughter, adulting. Yay.
Yeah, I know. That's not easy either, but that's the best thing I've accomplished.
And then where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Probably doing the same, just prioritizing my family, but also I feel like there's a lot of, in terms of professionally, there's so much new media. So I see myself more in, things that are streaming behind the paywall, YouTube and whatnot, and then expanding my production company and continuing to do great work. And then Hannah Storm Foundation really growing as well. So I have a lot of goals in the next 10 years.
No, we didn't even get into the foundation. So yes, I would love to have you back at some point.
Yeah.
But everybody listening and watching, share this episode, talk to your family over the holidays. It's really important. It's an easy test. Why wouldn't you want to know? And for your kids, if nothing else, do it for your kids.
Yeah.
So Myriad.com
/ know your history. Myriad. Yeah,
Myriad.
Just remember that because they make it so easy.
Yeah, we'll put everything in the show notes.
Thank you.
Good.
That's awesome.
Great. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.